Okay, now the president of Botswana has issued a warning to Germany. He's threatened to send 20,000 elephants to that country. This comes after the German government suggested that there should be stricter limits on importing hunting trophies. Botswana has struggled to deal with a huge population of elephants, and this president assured that his threat was no joke. Well, what does this all mean? Actually, what is the state of play when it comes to our wildlife conservation? Let's discuss this now with Richard York. He is the CEO of Wildlife Ranching South Africa. Joins me in studio. Richard, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much, Dan.
I chuckled when I saw this a little bit to say, yes, we want tourists to come to our shores in Southern Africa, to Botswana, to South Africa, to come and see our beautiful wildlife. But these elephants are a big headache, and Botswana is trying to sort it out and is proposing a particular way which is not making the Germans happy. So the president of Masisi says, I'll send 20,000 elephants to you so you can experience how it is hard to live with them.
Absolutely, Dan. For once, it's actually a president that's taking the lead in saying we're not going to adopt Western or European ideologies on Africa and how we must conserve wildlife. We're sitting with a massive crisis not only in Botswana but in entire southern Africa with too many elephants and not enough habitat. So what must you do with these elephants? What must you do to create habitat for them?
Especially when he points out that they're destroying crops, they're also harming people.
Absolutely, and it's that threat to people. What must the communities do with that amount of elephant? Botswana, in the report that he talks about, he says that Botswana's got 130,000 elephant. But if you include the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, which is larger than Germany and Austria combined, and twice the size of the United Kingdom, we're talking about almost 230,000 elephants that roam between those 5 countries.
Botswana at any point could be exposed to that number of elephants.
Absolutely.
So the problem is actually bigger than 130,000. What about us in South Africa? What's our population of elephants?
So we range between 50 and 60,000 compared to certain observations.
How do you manage this? I mean, what can you do there? Is there something like responsible culling? I'm not an expert of wildlife, you are.
So this is one of our biggest challenges at the moment. If we just look outside of protected areas or outside of Kruger National Park alone, 75% of all breeding adult female elephants are on some form of contraceptive. So that might sound weird. We're talking about an endangered species that needs to be protected, but yet we're putting it on contraceptives. So either it's endangered and we need to grow the population, or it's not endangered and we need to utilize the population through sustainable use that communities can benefit from it. You can't have both.
But you need some form of balance then.
Absolutely. And this is where Kenya is a prime example where the imbalance has taken place. According to their 2021 census, there's an estimated 36,000 elephants in the country, but there's only 15 roan antelope and 51 sable antelope left in the entire kingdom.
One species is big in terms of numbers, that's elephants, and the other types of wildlife animals very low.
Yes, and that's the biggest threat why we as an industry are concerned. Because when you allow there to be too many elephants, what's your habitat degradation that takes place? It takes 1,000 years for an inch of soil to form. And if you're going to allow that soil to be eroded, allow your big trees to be destroyed, what happens to your vultures, your leopards, your birds, your insects? What happens to all of those species as well?
So you have this Western conservationists like in Germany saying, no, you can't do this anymore. We can't import any more trophies for hunting. And apparently there's a big market, I understand, in Germany for elephant trophies, for ivory tusks and all of that. So what do you, from a wildlife conservation perspective, think should be done or can be done in this regard, using Botswana as an example?
So something that many listeners out there don't understand is that South Africa is a pro-sustainable use model. 80% of the 20 million head of wildlife in South Africa are on privately owned farmland, such as our members, that look after and conserve wildlife. Because why? It's got a value. Any form of ban takes away that value. And I'd like, Dan, I brought this rock with. I'd like to give you this rock, and I want you to look after and cherish this rock. Will you do so?
Yeah, I don't know. What rock is this here?
It's just a normal pebble.
It's just,
but the question being asked, if that was a diamond,
yes,
would you look after it? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
And that's one of the worst
things. It's a simple rock.
It's a simple rock.
Chuck it away, yeah?
It's got no value.
Yes.
So, and that's what bans want to do. Bans want to take away the value of wildlife for rural people and make it valueless.
Now, Botswana besides sending these elephants to Germany, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know what's the latest on that story, by the way. I tried to check before I came to speak to you, because even in the UK, there's a lot of noise around this. And you made the point in the beginning that Africans have solutions themselves. We should not be dictated to by the Western country to say, this is what you must do. What would be the best thing to do? Is it culling? How do you do it? How do you contain the growth of one species like the elephants, who are threatening livelihoods, and create that balance and build up the other stock of species?
In a large amounts of areas, you are going to have to look at culling. But you're also going to have to look at incentivizing people. We talk about creating more habitat, and what's driving a lot of the narrative, especially from the European side, is the 30 by 30 principles of sustainable use.
Tell me more, 30 by 30?
That by 2030, 30% of every country's land mass must be under a protected area. So there's this narrative of creating expansive protected areas. We would have seen it in the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy that even our own Minister, Barbara Creasy, recently published, where we want to expand wildlife habitat. How are you going to do it if you've got a trade ban that makes that wildlife valueless? So unless we're going to have sustainable use and allow the benefit to be derived from those animals by local people, why are they going to tolerate the elephant on their back door when their crops that allow them to feed their family are being destroyed?
And we can't forget that, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made by Botswana, by South Africa and others in Southern Africa and in East Africa like Kenya in terms of the trophies on the wildlife that we possess. People can come and visit.
Absolutely. And South Africa, what makes us a little bit more unique, of the 15.4 billion rand that was research done by Prof. Piet van der Merwe last year from Northwest University, most of it, about 12 billion, is generated locally. A smaller amount is generated by your international hunters. So your local hunters are just as important as well as your international hunters.
While you praise President Masisi of Botswana's stance when we started this interview, do you think he will follow through with his threat? He said it's not a joke. Is it a good idea to ship 20,000 elephants to Germany? Will he achieve what he seeks to achieve?
So realistically, I don't think it's a good idea to ship them there. Our habitat isn't the same. But you know what? I'm the type of person that will help crowdfund him to do so. Because Germany and the rest of Europe need to get a clear message that we, Africa, we've got our African problems and our African solutions. Don't come and tell us how we must manage our wildlife when you in your own country have decimated all your wildlife.
Thank you very much. Richard York, the CEO of Wildlife Ranching South Africa, there coming out in support of President Masisi of Botswana's recent statement that he's not joking. He will send those 20,000 elephants to Germany because they are insisting on how Botswana and others in Southern Africa should manage the growing elephant population, which is beautiful, but is causing a lot of economic damage at the same time.